I would like to believe that there's a personal God that actually hears our prayers, and like when we're praying for our loved ones who have cancer, they actually hear them and heal them. And I know we've all heard of one or two incidents where it's like, oh, they were cured, but overall the millions of people that get cancer don't get cured by asking a God to cure them. And like I said, I would like to believe that there's this loving person in the sky that watches over everybody and listens to everybody, and and helps us all. But I just don't believe that. I've never seen it, and I don't think anybody has. That's where faith comes in. Believe in things not yet seen.
I wake up in the morning with a smile on my face, feeling thankful for the love and the happiness we chase. Sun is shining brightly, sky so blue and clear. With every
Hi guys. As some of you may know, I claim to be a green witch. And when people find out that I say that I follow that path, basically, their first question is, so you don't believe in God? And honestly, it's not that simple. It's a little more complicated than that. I do believe in a God, a higher power. Maybe not the conventional God that people of organized religion follow necessarily, but I don't think all of this happened by accident. That's just my personal belief. I'm not going to debate anybody on it. That's not what this is about. But I personally believe that there is a higher power. I would like to believe that there's a personal God that actually hears our prayers, and like when we're praying for our loved ones who have cancer, they actually hear them and heal them. And I know we've all heard of one or two incidents where it's like, oh, they were cured, but overall the millions of people that get cancer don't get cured by asking a God to cure them. And like I said, I would like to believe that there's this loving person in the sky that watches over everybody and listens to everybody, and and helps us all. But I just don't believe that. I've never seen it, and I don't think anybody has. That's where faith comes in. Believe in things not yet seen. That's what we're told. I grew up in a Pentecostal Christian household, and I was a Bible student for many, many years. I've studied with various different religions and different churches, and it was through that I came to the conclusion that there is no such God. I'm not, like I said, I'm not here to debate it. If you want to believe that, and you believe that, that's fine. I'm not going to tell you, no, I can't give you any hard evidence against what you believe. I don't think anybody knows until we die and we go on to the next life what really is going to happen. We all choose to believe certain things, and that's okay. That's okay. That's why we got thousands and thousands and thousands of people debating it and fighting over it. And, there's wars over it because it's not that easy. Because I have people come at me like, oh, well, then you just need to read this passage, and it's like, seriously? You think it's that easy? Do you think that, do you understand how many different recognized religions there are? To date, there's over 4,000 different religions. And some have, one God, monotheistic, and then there's polytheistic where they have more than one God. And then there's some where they don't even have a God. A religion is typically defined as a group of people that follow a set of organized beliefs. Each church or whatever, there's, like Catholicism, and then there's, branches of that like Presbyterian and Lutheran, and oh my gosh, there's SDAs and Jehovah's Witnesses and Mormons and there's so many, different religions, and they all have their own interpretation of the Bible, or they have their own book, like the Book of Mormon or whatever, and they follow that. That's their guideline, basically. Um, and it tells them, their moral codes, things that they have to follow and whatnot. And they all, they'll show you different scriptures that will back up whatever it is they want to believe, and that's fine, as long as it doesn't hurt other people. But unfortunately, a lot of times it does. But that's my main thing. It's like, you can believe in whatever you want if it makes your life better, it enriches your life, and you feel good about it, and you're not hurting other people. But a lot of times you infringe on other people's rights, especially when you force them to believe like you believe. You know, you just A lot of people just will not be open to anybody else. This is just what they grew up with, and I get that, because even I, grew up with a certain set of beliefs, and it was really hard for me to overcome those. It really was. It was difficult, because in the back of my mind, it was like anything that was deterring me from what I grew up with, my main beliefs, what had to be from the devil, because that's what we were told. The devil wants to confuse you, by showing you other things. And so it was hard for me to get past that. And the same with believing in one God that is like a father that overlooks everything. And, that was really difficult to give that up, because like I said, I want to believe in that, but I don't see that, because there is so much there's so many terrible things happening, wars and illnesses and people being abused and mistreated, and especially children. And I just can't imagine a loving God allowing that to happen. And then people will say, well, free will. It's not the person that's being victimized free will, so why would this God not listen to them and deliver them? Why won't he help them during this time? And people give me all kinds of different answers, but none of it makes sense. That's not the kind of God I want to believe in. I want to believe that there's a loving um, God that's out there that really truly cares about the people he created, and he wouldn't allow this type of thing to happen. But if you want to believe that, like I said, I'm not going to tell you no, if that's your choice. But I just feel like I try to be respectful, and because I don't know, I'm not a scholar. I have studied with other groups and other religions, but I certainly don't have all the answers. I don't, obviously no one does, right? Or we wouldn't have thousands and thousands of different religions and churches, and we have all these different books, and even the Christian Bible is there's so many interpretations of that, and each church chooses the interpretation that they want to abide by, and that's the one they preach on, because it'll back up what they decide to believe in. And again, I feel like it has a part. It can be very helpful, because a lot of people need that sense of community. They need that structure, and it can be helpful for a lot of people. And life is stressful, and people feel alienated, and having that makes them feel like they have somebody looking over them. And I get that, so I don't knock it for that reason. But like I said, as long as when you believe something like that, you don't force it on everybody else. Now, I get some people are like, oh, but it's so great and wonderful, and I want you to be saved, and I'm doing you a favor type, mentality. But still, a lot of times that crosses boundaries. It's not, they're like badgering you. And when you politely, refute or rebuke them, and they still continue, that's when there's a problem. It's like, look, I get that you believe that, but that doesn't mean I have to believe that. And that's the problem that I run into. So, like I said, I have my own set of beliefs, and I came to this conclusion years ago. and it's been through many years of studying, and I'm comfortable with my beliefs. I don't believe in hell. I can't even imagine how people do. That's like you're going to burn in hell. Well, nothing burns forever, right? And your physical body, it goes back to dust. So it's not your physical body. You're saying spiritually you're going to burn forever. What kind of horrific God would want that? Even as a parent, when you love your child and you discipline them, no matter what, you would never want them to be in physical pain forever and ever and ever. I mean, that's just horrific to even imagine there's a God like that. But if that's what some people need to keep them on the straight and narrow, it's like, I got to, or I'm going to do this. It's like, not everybody needs to be forced into being good by, they don't need to be threatened with something like that. Yeah, because that it doesn't seem to be working for a lot of people. But I know growing up, um, because like I said, I grew up in a Pentecostal household, and we went to church, and my mom had a very strong religious belief, and she was a good woman, and um, she just wanted what was best for her kids. So I get where she came from, and I feel the same way. I honestly didn't take my religious beliefs seriously until I had children, because then I felt like, well, I'm in charge of these, little minds. I need to guide them into, doing what's right. So, we went to church, and I tried to teach them what I knew and what I believed. And then as they grew up, they did their own studying, and they've come to their own conclusions. And that's what you want. You want them to decide for themselves. But we're all different. We all have different beliefs. And the whole idea, I think, of that is to help us lead better lives, to be kinder, loving human beings. And that's what being a Green Witch is for me. Um, I don't believe in harming anyone. I believe in being connected with the earth and energies, and that we're all connected. And I do believe in a higher power. I think that, like I said, this didn't all just happen. That's my belief. I could be totally wrong, and I will find out someday, I'm sure. But right now, that's where I'm at. And I try to treat others the way I want to be treated, and to be respectful. And I think that that's the main goal, or should be, of other religions, is to teach others how to behave, and to be kind, and to be the best that they can be. And who knows, we may find out I'm completely wrong. Like I said, I'm not going to say that I know everything. Obviously, I don't, but no one seems to. Although, many people will debate that. They'll tell you they know, they know, they know, they know. I know that I know that I know. I used to say that because I feel it in my soul. I felt it, and it's funny how we can convince ourselves that this is the way it is, or it should be. And yeah, I remember hanging out. I even went through the born again Christian phase. It was a good time. I enjoyed my friends, and I enjoyed going to church, and it felt good at the time. And then after a while, once I started questioning things, and we had Bible studies, and I wasn't getting answers, and I was just basically getting, you have to believe, you have to have faith. That's when I realized, okay, this isn't what I thought, you know? And okay, sorry about that. My camera was full. Imagine that. Anyway, yeah, where was I? It was through studying, I through having Bible studies with various churches, I realized there's no concrete evidence. And I'm the type of person I need evidence. Believing in things sight unseen, that type of thing. I'm the type of person I need to see. I need evidence. And obviously, I'm not the only one. And if it was that easy, wouldn't we all be the same? Wouldn't we all be following the same religion and following the same God? There's a reason that we're not. And as far as I can tell, it's because there is no proof. And we can all choose to believe what we want, but until you show me, and people will show me different interpretations of the Bible and they'll tell me different stories, but that's not enough. That's not enough. I have lived 63 years, almost 64 next month, and I have yet to see any concrete evidence that will change my mind. And I've talked to plenty of people. And like I said, I don't look down on anybody for their spiritual or religious beliefs. I think that's a very personal thing. And like I said, life is hard. We do what we can to get through it. And we all see things differently. We think differently. We're wired different. And, depending on where you grew up, and even just within the United States, there's so many different areas. Like there's, some places are more geared towards Mormonism, whereas, I lived close to an area that's predominantly SDA. And back east, where my husband and I grew up in the Midwest, Catholicism was the main religion, or churches that people went to. And like down south, they have Baptists, and I get it. I understand why people are so different all over the world. And I try, like I said, I try to be respectful, and I just ask that others be the same to me. But I don't always get that same respect. And that tells me more about them than it does me, right? When a person cannot be tolerant or respectful of other people's beliefs, especially when what I do doesn't harm anyone else. That's what I judge people on. If I see that what they're doing is harmful or causes them to do things that are harmful, then yeah, I would be more likely to judge them. Say, that's why a lot of people have a negative feeling towards certain religious groups because of their intolerance, especially when you're in part of a religious belief that teaches love and acceptance overall, and yet they're not. And that's where I try to be. I try to be loving and accepting of other people's views, because I might find out that they were right. I don't know. But right now, I'm doing what feels right to me, just like you're doing what feels right to you. And all we can do is continue studying, learning. If you believe in prayer and that type of thing, like I said, I do believe in a higher power, but it's just not the God that I grew up believing in. And I don't know if that will ever change, but I'm always, I listen to other people. I'm not closed off. And especially when I see how other people conduct themselves, and I see how they're living their lives. People feel like, well, I'm so blessed because of what I believe in. I've seen terrible people that have wonderful lives. So, that's not always a factor that, you can't judge a person by that. But I judge people by how they treat other people, their willingness to listen to other people. And some people just have that inner joy and love, and they're kind to all people. And I've run into quite a few people like that in my life. And some of them have been in churches, and some of them have not been in churches. So yeah, you can't judge a book by its cover. Just because somebody says they're this doesn't necessarily mean they're going to be this kind, loving, considerate person, So yeah, just try to keep an open mind, and live your life accordingly to how you believe, and try to be respectful of other people just because they don't share the same beliefs as you. That's all I'm saying. And open, because that's how you learn. If you close yourself off and you just hang out with people that believe exactly like you do, you're never going to learn. You're just going to continue this same cycle. Live in an echo chamber and hear what you want to hear, and you don't allow for any room to grow. And that's why I like talking to other people in different walks of life and different spiritual and religious and political beliefs, because that's how we learn. So anyway, I gotta go. I gotta work. Tell me what you think. Be kind. If you don't agree with me, that's fine. You could still be kind. And I'm curious what other people think. So yeah, leave me a comment, let me know, and I will see you guys in the next video.